Hey guys, so today we are going to be discussing the new Black Mirror movie, Bandersnatch. I asked you guys on Twitter if I should start discussing Black Mirror on my channel, even though it's not technically like true horror or whatever, and overwhelmingly you guys said yes. So of course I started with the most difficult to talk about / review episode movie that there is of Black Mirror. It's obviously gotten a lot of hype lately and a lot of people are talking about it because it is a new style of enjoying Black Mirror and like a new form of entertainment. Obviously it's not the first of its kind, but we'll get into that in a bit. So Bandersnatch is an interactive choose your own fate type of movie, and I made sure to watch all the content possible. So I saw all 5 endings. I went through every decision and choice, so I've seen it all. So not every choice that you make is life or death. It's not going to always alter the movie significantly, and you do always have the option to try again if you don't like the outcome that you receive. And the reason why I'm mentioning this at this point in the review before getting into the movie or anything is because I don't want you guys to go into it full of anxiety like I did. I tend to, when it's this kind of situation, overthink every single decision. So I just want you to know that no matter what you choose, you can return back to that decision if you'd like. So the story follows a 19-year-old video game designer who is taking the book written by Jerome F. Davies and turning it into a video game. Now, the book is a choose your own fate type novel, and there's some backstory within that. And this is also the first Black Mirror episode because, as we know, Black Mirror is a futuristic type thriller show, so we get a lot of, you know, technology overpowering humans or technology impacting how we live our daily lives. It's obviously an ode to the Black Mirror of our technology, like the black screen. But this one takes place in 1984. Now, obviously, we had an episode where they go back in time to the 80s. That's a little bit different because it's still a futuristic type Black Mirror episode, but this one is all takes place in 1984, kind of. Now, Bandersnatch is an actual game that was developed in the 80s, I believe in 1984, but was never released, so I think that's why the year is significant, but it can also be an ode to the book 1984. So this isn't my first rodeo with this type of entertainment. Growing up, I really loved the Goosebumps books where it was a choose your own fate style, my personal favorite being the Carnival one. I believe I still have them somewhere in my apartment. Also, Final Destination 3, one of their DVD features is you can choose your own fate, and your choices from that movie really impact the story, and you can't like go back. It's like really weird. I did not like the choose your own fate feature on Final Destination 3's DVD because it like permanently and like radically changes the course of the movie, and to where the other plot points later in the film don't make sense because something happened before, but the movie was obviously written for one way, like one story, and then you change it and then they don't rewrite it to make it fit with, anyway, whatever. And these of course aren't the first to do this either, but Netflix does seem to want to implement this a little bit more. They have done this with some children's shows from what I have read online, so it seems like they're going to start implementing this into other Netflix shows and movies and things. So after finishing my journey of Bandersnatch, I was like, how the heck am I going to talk about this? How am I going to review this? This can't even be a review because I'm not going to go into every single ending and analyze it like I would a traditional movie review. So I thought I would just come on here and share my experience, my overall thoughts. I would recommend that you watch it and participate in it because it is a very strange new type of experience, and I think they did it in a way that worked so much better than other methods that I've seen this done in, such as Final Destination 3. They did it well in terms of being able to alter your decisions and also see all the content in a smooth, like linear way instead of having to rewind or fast forward, because they do all that for you. They know the choices and they have written pieces to fit those choices, and then you can go back and they've rewritten certain things. However, there were times where I felt a little bit of disappointment and I was kind of like, is that it? So this has definitely been getting a mix of reviews from critics and fans. I feel like some people are really into it and some people not so much. I saw a couple articles that just ripped Bandersnatch a new one. I will link them down below, but I will be reading a little bit, well, just like a paragraph of each one, because some of it I agree with, some of it I think is a little unfair of a critique. The biggest critique that I saw from critics anyway, and like these articles written online, was the repetitiveness of it all. I didn't find it annoying or anything. Yes, you do. When you change an outcome and you alter and you go back and make a different decision, it does kind of recap what has happened in that particular storyline. But the deeper you get, the faster they move through those plot points. And I think it's really important that you do not fast forward, because each decision that you change, it alters it, sometimes in a subtle way, sometimes in a bigger way. But I think it's really important to sit through all of the new journey that you take. This is really hard to talk about and like explain, especially if you have not done it yet. And I say done it because it's like you're a participant, you're experiencing it, it's not like watching it, you know? Anyway, I just think it's more entertaining to watch it all the way through, and it does guide you as far as which choices you can go back and change, which I really like, because like I said, I get anxiety, like, oh my god, my decision's permanent, it's gonna affect it and I'm not gonna see all of it. You'll see all of it if you really want to. So CNN wrote, the story weaves in the notion that the choices we make essentially create alternative realities, but in a way not much deeper than the historical musings of teenagers in smoke-filled rooms. And while the producers encourage the viewer to try different options and explore potential avenues of the story, the manner in which the narrative keeps circling back to the main through line becomes numbing and repetitive the longer the experience drags on. I think that each choice and each ending is very different from one another, so for me it's not that repetitive. Like I said, they do circle back through certain plot points when... Hey guys, hey Pepe, can I... Anyway, I didn't find it that repetitive because it does like recap things, but the changes that you ultimately make and the new decisions are very different from one another. So for me, it's not, if you've sat through the whole thing, the recaps and things like that is a very minuscule part of the movie. So now I want to get into some plot points that might be considered spoilers in a way. I think if you haven't done this whole thing yet and you haven't gone through it all yet, not to watch the rest of this video, because you should know that you should figure out these things on your own through the experience, not through my video. So just a heads up, we're gonna get into some spoilery things. So this is definitely the most meta thing I have ever experienced, and I definitely felt uncomfortable throughout some of the parts, and it was mostly in a good way, but it definitely felt like I was part of the movie, because there are times when Stefan is actually talking to you, the viewer, because he's obviously asking, who's controlling me? I know someone's out there, who are you? And then there's an option to either give the answer of the fork thing, you know, from White Bear, I believe, but also it's significant in this movie. And also the other option is Netflix. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you can tell him Netflix is controlling him, rather a viewer, you, from Netflix from the future. Now obviously this takes place in 1984 and Netflix does not exist, so that is a journey in itself. Also, one of the endings, there's a woman named Pearl who is in modern day and she works for Netflix, or at least is writing a script, and she is taking Stefan's 1984 game of Bandersnatch and turning it into a Netflix movie, which is a choose your own fate interactive adventure. So it's like so many layers of, oh, we just went through this controlling him, and now we're seeing Netflix creating exactly what we're watching and interacting with right now, and it's just so meta. It's like, so for me, this aspect of Netflix and interacting with Stefan as a viewer from Netflix in this way and trying to explain to him that you're from the future and you're a viewer that's controlling his every move, this was probably the weakest plot point slash ending of the whole thing for me. I don't think it was bad because it was definitely entertaining. I did this whole thing with my boyfriend and we were laughing the whole time and like we're really weirded out by the whole thing. So doing it with someone else I think is much more entertaining than if you were by yourself. So one of the articles that I referenced that rips it a new one is just not a fan of it. It's very critical of it. It's from the Hollywood Reporter. I'll link the whole article down below, but there is a section of it that I kind of agree with, but only a little bit. I'm just gonna read it to you. There was a meta moment in Bandersnatch when one of the choices viewers will have involves the word Netflix. Given that the movie takes place in the early 1980s, this is chronistic to say the least. Clicking on it leads to a scene that is, well, pretty ludicrous and mostly unlike the rest of the movie, and smacks less of clever self-referential promotion than pointless grandstanding. Man, did they use a thesaurus for this? Like, oh my god. I would say that scene takes the viewer out of the story, but the story is never really engaging enough to make you care about it in the first place. That last line is way too harsh in my opinion. It does kind of take you out, but luckily you've already gone through most of the story at that point, and this is just a feature where you can go back to select the other one, unless you picked it first, which I don't recommend. I recommend picking the fork symbol first and then going through that storyline before doing the Netflix one. Like I said, I believe it's the weakest point of the movie, but I don't think it deserves the criticism of it taking you out, but not really, because it wasn't that engaging to begin with. I thought it was. Granted, because there's so many layers and choices and options within this movie, they did have to keep it a little simple, and they couldn't get into the characters as much as I would have liked because they didn't have time to delve into each individual character as much as I think people would have liked, because it is a much more shallow kind of plot line, but I think it gave enough to where the viewer feels engaged. I don't think, you know, we're not engaged enough to care. I cared. I read an article that pretty much summed up why this feeling and this plot point is so strange. You've got to admit that there's something a little uncomfortably meta about a choose your own adventure Black Mirror episode produced and distributed by Netflix, a company that keeps meticulous tabs on its users' viewing preferences and uses them to not just provide absurdly specific micro-genre recommendations, but also to generate personalized promotional art and to reverse engineer internal creative decisions about which movies and TV shows to create next. That's another level of meta in this. It's not just we're telling him that we're from the future and like watching this on Netflix, but Netflix controls us also. Like, we believe we have the decision of free, or the option of free will within this game, this movie, whatever. But realistically, Netflix already knows and can predict our decisions and also write the movie in a way that can control us. And no matter what, however much we think we have free will of these decisions in the movie, Netflix ultimately gives us the options and is forcing us to go through them. I thought I would share my favorite ending within the movie just for reference, I don't know. But it had to be the time when he went back in time through the mirror, and when he was 5 years old, and it took him back to the day that his mom died. And you get to go through this process of finding the rabbit and taking it out of the safe and then putting it under the bed. He finds it, and you decide to go with his mom on the train that ultimately kills both of them. The only thing that I found a little bit cheesy about this ending is because we have gone back and altered the past, and now Stefan died when he was 5, and so he no longer exists. It takes us to the future Stefan, where he's sitting in a therapy session and just dies because obviously he shouldn't exist anymore. Overall, I really enjoyed my experience. There were letdown moments for sure, and just have an open mind when you're going through the whole experience, and don't be too stressed out or overthink your decisions, because you will be able to go back and watch every decision if you choose to. Also, there is a timeline that was created by someone on Reddit. I will try to find a link to it down below, but I looked at that after watching all of it to make sure that I had gone through every decision. So if you feel like you may not have, you can double check and reference that graph. So I think that's everything as far as things that I wanted to talk about. This is a very weird movie to review, and it's not really a review because it's a different experience for everyone, I think, because even if we've all seen all the content, it probably was in a different order because of our decisions. If you've seen Bandersnatch and have gone through all of it and everything, please leave your feedback down below, and overall if you were disappointed or loved it and are excited for more content like this from Netflix. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon.